Ladies and gentlemen, dear organizers, it is my great pleasure to participate, even though virtually, in their conference of Korea Association of Agricultural and Food Policy on Korea's new northern policy and agricultural industry. Being Vice President of the Forest and Federal University, I should tell you that our university is extremely interested in putting forward our cooperation with our Korean partners. We have a long established extensive history of such cooperation in various areas, and we think that Korea is one of our most prospective partners and friends. And thus allow me to say a few words about their overall development strategy for the forest and bilateral cooperation between our two countries, and also what are already their benefits and their projects that Korea is having in the Russian forest and where we could go further. So obviously, the Russian forest is extremely attractive region from the economic point of view. It has unique potential, geographic, natural, and I'm not just talking about the natural resources that are located there and their beautiful nature, and I'm talking about cumulative potential of the region, including its human capital. It has long sea coast, land, external border with the established educational and scientific infrastructure, which creates also great potential for investment into various projects. And the Russian government also introduced over the past years, it will soon be a decade, when it took greater interest in this area, offering a new legal arrangements for the Russian forest with the introduction of the territories of advanced socioeconomic development, TASED, and also the special arrangement for Vladivostok, which is the free port of Vladivostok. The main function of both territories of advanced development and free port of Vladivostok is obviously to attract new projects, new investors, to create new joint enterprises led both by Russian and foreign industrial and service sectors and industries. It does have a number of benefits. If needed, obviously we can look into that deeper, and hopefully we can do that when we have a face-to-face conference, when it becomes possible. But it is necessary to claim that such legal arrangements provide for limited in time, but still a number of years, zero tax for in various areas, property tax for the first 5 years, and then 0.5% for the next 5 years. For example, there could be extra benefits introduced by the regional governments. Land tax is also only just 0% for the first three years. Insurance payments are lower than in other territories and are significantly reduced, and also administrative preferences imply for the ability to attract foreign labor without quotas, and another preference would be obtaining land plot for rent without extra bidding, which is also important. While this policy could be seen as still in the formation, there are a number of projects that are already led, and we already seen how Russian forest is being integrated into the Asia Pacific. While there's still problems, and we know about them, and they are being dealt on the governmental level, their transparent and predictable investment framework that has been introduced for their investment climate that would allow for companies, and it does allow for companies already, to have more opportunities and to have their activities in a reasonable and timely manner. Over their last 5-year period, those territories and regimes operating allowed for significant socioeconomic development of the forest and created some comfortable conditions. Today we have 20 territories of advanced development. The 2 new territories are introduced. As you know, there were 2 regions that were moved from Siberia to the forest, that is Buryatia Republic and Transbaikal Territory. And altogether it's 20 plus another one in Ruski Island. So more than 76,000 workplaces were created at the time. 94 enterprises put into operation. 448 resident investors involved with a volume of private investments amounting to over 3 trillion rubles, which is about $50 billion. Freeport of Vladivostok as a growth point is also developing dynamically. The number of its residents increased from 432 in January 2018 to almost 2,000 in early August 2020. And the volume of investments increased from about $5 billion to over $15 billion, which could seem, and is not a huge volume, but it's increasing. It increased over 2 years, 3-fold, and we hope for the same dynamic to be remaining. The FPV, or Freeport of Vladivostok, residents put into operation almost 1,500 enterprises, created about 100,000 jobs. And obviously its activities are extended beyond Vladivostok and Primoria to other Far Eastern regions. When we talk about main communication platforms for these policies to be implemented, we are remembering about their Eastern Economic Forum. We know that it's been moved this year because of pandemic situation, but we had a quite successful 5 forums already held, the last one last year. And if we look at 2019, as a result of the forum, we had about $4.5 billion of agreements struck between their participants of the forum. 7 new companies with investment projects in processing of natural resources, agro-industrial complex, tourism, mining, gas and petrochemicals were added to their TED and FPV. So this is probably not their big, but a significant step to talk about. We should also talk separately about the Ruski Island, which is a special administrative region, and we also have since 2018 a special package of federal laws providing for the creation of this region and special benefits for its residents. When we talk about foreign entities and foreign companies, not just about Korea, we could talk about Hong Kong Arbitration Court that first opened its center in Vladivostok last April, and it allowed to use the arbitration services, which is recognized in 160 countries, which is a good step forward and provides and demonstrates transparency of the region. Today, work is underway to elaborate more clarifications to the current arbitration, especially in the context of complex investments that are being held now. Another important thing that we need to talk about and need to remember is that Ruski Island has the Innovation Scientific and Technological Center created there, It has also special benefits for the residents, for the investors, and FEFU is being the key and the core of this center, and would allow for advanced corporations, startups, financial organizations, and other entities to concentrate their activities with the benefit to them holding complex interdisciplinary scientific and technological projects implementation. Thus, we can say that Far East remains a priority for the Russian government, and it is developing. It's already done a number of steps in order to allow for the Far East advanced development, even when you compare to the whole country, but it also is continuing its work to allow for more comfortable and beneficial way for foreign investment to come, to provide for deeper integration of Russia into the Asia-Pacific region, and also to provide for higher quality of life for those people who are living in the Far East. So, as I said at the very beginning, Korea is extremely important and priority partner for Russia, not just in the Far East, but we're talking about this particular region, and thus I will give a few examples. As you know, there's a Korean diaspora in the Far East, and it also provides for higher involvement of Koreans into their Russian economy. There is an experience in the investment projects in industry, services, trade. Many factors determine this relationship. It's geographic proximity, transport infrastructure, cultural factor. So when we talk about the Far Eastern Federal University, we're also seeing quite a number of activities that are introduced by our university in order to promote this particular area in bilateral cooperation. And I should say that Korean Studies Department is one of the most successful and most attractive for Russian students departments in the university, and it also holds a number of activities, not just of educational nature, but also of research, providing for deeper Russia-Korea cooperation. So what do we have? We have about 11 Korean companies that are participating as residents for the territories of advanced development and free port of Vladivostok. The total volume of Korean investment is slightly over 8 billion rubles. So it's not big, but Korea remains in top 3 investors. Where Koreans are investing? So it's port infrastructure modernization, production of environmentally friendly technologies, medical centers establishment, agriculture, timber processing, and tourist cluster. In agriculture, for example, the total contribution of the South Korean enterprises over the last 10 years amounted to about $37 million US. As for the last year, we had 9 investment projects implemented with Korean in the field of energy, shipbuilding, port infrastructure, all those that are already mentioned. And today, if we look at Primoria, we have over 50 enterprises with South Korean capital operating in all those areas. I could talk about formerly Hyundai Hotel and Business Center, now it's Lotte, and Lotte planning to build another one. NTK, Korea Yukut, and others as important partners in their area. There's also a partnership between Rosneft and Hyundai Heavy Industries to create a shipyard in Bolshoi Kamen, And although we don't see an purely investment from the South Korean side, we see South Koreans acting as contractors and providing engineering services in modern shipbuilding technologies. And we know that South Korea is really their world leader in this area. So, as I mentioned, there's still problems remaining in Russia, and that's why sometimes Koreans are afraid to come, but this is being solved now. So among the problems could be still insufficient transport and other infrastructure development, and this is the area where we see probably one of the biggest interests from the point of view of South Koreans to come in. There we need also more positive information coming from South Korean markets, but also another problem is a small capacity of the forest and consumer market. So unless there is high integration with the Northeast Asian market, this would be not as profitable as needed. Creation of joint ventures is a very popular and well-known form of investment with Russia for Koreans. This could be enterprises, and we already have this in shipbuilding and medical industries. I already mentioned Bolshoi coming with Hyundai and Rosneft. Although I know there's some kind of competition now on a number of things coming between Chinese and Korean investors. The increase in resource extraction and high interest to the Arctic also provides for some increasing demand for ships, and thus it really does allow for really deep cooperation between Russia and South Korea. In addition to areas I mentioned in shipbuilding, we could also be talking about employing qualified Korean personnel and developing highly competitive approaches to managing complex high-tech projects, especially in shipbuilding. So what are the areas which could be still developed further? With the creation of such conditions as legal basis, as proper infrastructure, among areas that could be interesting would be creation of high-tech products. I'm not talking just about shipbuilding, but this could be aircraft, this could be IT sector. Then there are projects for development of agriculture and mariculture development. And there were also improvements into their Russian legislation, and thus there's been an online service developed where investor can independently select a plot by submitting the application to Roskomribalovstvo, which is a Russian entity responsible for managing this area, and then participate in the tender. And we have about 65 million hectares of land available for mariculture projects. Another very promising area would be creation of projects in tourism and healthcare. We know that since the creation of the visa-free regime, and for South Korea, there's been a huge flow of the Russians going to South Korea, but also with the introduction of their e-visa on arrival, we had many more South Koreans coming to visit Vladivostok, coming to visit Primoria. There is a developing cruise ship industry that is interesting for Koreans, but obviously it's not for nothing that I mentioned several times infrastructure development. There needs to be more attention given to this particular area because there is a requirement for, in order for for South Korean tourists to come more. There is a definitely need to come second time or third time. We definitely need to develop together this infrastructure for tourist cluster. Today we also have a number of well-known Korean medical centers that are interested in not only in having medical tourism attraction on their territory in South Korea, but extending their activities in the Russian forest. And this is where we also have quite a few advanced areas where, for example, Forest University is quite good at. This could be search for effective methods of cancer treatment, including the application of radiopharmaceuticals. Russia has projects related to radionuclides, and this could be obviously developed together. There is another area, there is another project that is being developed now and being it's in its first phases between the Forest and Federal University and its Korean partner in the area of dentistry, and also creating joint exchange programs. As I said, I already talked about tourism, but let me give more attention to agriculture. A number of companies are already working in agriculture, and here we need to proceed from the sales market. Today, small projects focused on the domestic market and projects related to products manufacturing for export, like cultivation and processing of corn, soybean, cultivation of wild fruits and producing various products from them, low carbon agriculture, they could be promising. And this is why it could be interesting for Koreans that TED residents, when they invest and implement the projects in the field of agriculture, they could not only have benefits that I mentioned in the first part of my speech, but it is also worth knowing that for their development of their project, they have extra benefits. For example, the lower cost for electricity, which is almost twice as low as in general. The land plots are leased out for 69 years, and if all the whole thing is implemented as promised, it could be then bought out and also registered. And if it's legally registered in Russia, it gets the right to buy this land at the cadastral value, which could be also interesting if you're looking into long-term investments. If there's not more than 49% of foreign investments, then joint ventures of Koreans and Russians could participate in the state programs of the Russian government, competitions, and thus receiving preferential financing and additional benefits from the government. And thus, I believe that when we talk about area of agriculture, science and technology, including not just IT, virtual reality, and additive reality, big data processing. For example, we have a Korea university that joined us as part of the consortium, where Forest and Federal University won a bid where it had the consortium on VR and AR, and we have Korean partners as our main partners in this whole project. Shipbuilding, tourism, and hospitality. All of that should be considered and looked into with greater attention by our Korean partners. And of course, what is most important, and that in order for this to be happening, we need to develop joint human capacity. And this is where our universities are important. We need to have some projects and some programs, educational programs and research programs, which would allow for our students, for our professors, to come up with new startups, new designs, new developments that would allow for not just for business to develop, but for our countries having deeper ties and more tying points that would allow for more beneficial country-to-country bilateral cooperation. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope that we'll have other conferences like that, but on a face-to-face basis, and already at that point that we'll be able to look at some progress, further progress reached by our two countries, and also where our universities, where our institutions would be playing a major role. Thank you so much.